Hello, and welcome back to this next chapter of Kim's Codex, where today we're going to be talking about the story of Gilgamesh, the ancient Sumerian epic about a hero king who is 1/3 human and 2/3 divine. The story of Gilgamesh was written to have taken place around 2500 to 2800 BC. Scholars think he may have been a real king, although they doubt everything that happened in the story was true. Now to start off with, so Gilgamesh was the son of Uruk, the king, and the goddess Ninsun. 1/3 human and 2/3 divine, which means we can only suppose that divine DNA accounts for twice as much, because he still only had 2 parents. Anyway, he was super energetic king. He was always having battles, waging wars, building up monuments to the city, waging more battles to get more building supplies, having fighting competitions with all young men, and the people of his city were exhausted. They were being worn into the ground with all his building projects. They were tired of all their young men dying, being sent off to war, and they were praying to the god, father of the gods, for some relief from Gilgamesh. And he heard their cries, and so Anu, father of the gods, called Uruk, the goddess of creation, and said, "Make a match for Gilgamesh." So she did. She made him out of clay, and he was just as strong as Gilgamesh, but instead of being 1/3 human and 2/3 divine, he was 1/3 human and 2/3 animal. He was his opposite in pretty much every way. And he sent him off, and he was being raised and living with the wild animals. Well, one day, there was a trapper who, having his bad day of hunting, all his nets were slashed, all his holes were filled in. He's like, what am I going to do? And he gets to a watering hole and he sees this huge wild man, completely covered with matted hair, and his hunter looked as big as a mountain with his muscles as large as rocks, and the hunter is just like stock still, like, there's this wild man. And when the wild man left, he's like, oh. So he went home and told his father what he'd seen, and he said, his father gave him the advice to go to Uruk to see King Gilgamesh to ask him what to do about the wild man. So the hunter makes the trip to Uruk and talks to Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh says, go to the temple of Ishtar and talk to one of Ishtar's priestesses there who are skilled in the ways of love. And have the best one there, a priestess named Shamhat, have her come with you to the watering pool and let her seduce Enkidu and try to tame the wild man. So he did. He went and met Shamhat, and they journeyed to the pool and they waited for 3 days. And when the wild man appeared, Shamhat stripped naked and they make love for 7 days. At the end of 7 days, Enkidu tries to return to all his animal friends, but now he doesn't smell like one of them. He doesn't act like one of them. He acts like a man, and they all run away in fear. And he's like, I don't have any animal friends. So he goes back to Shamhat, but now he can understand all the words she's saying, and he has in fact become civilized. Well, she takes him to a shepherd's hut where they trim his hair, feed him some bread and beer, and tell him this is what humans eat, and teach him basically how to be human. And while they're there, Enkidu sees a man who's going by. He's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the city of Uruk. I'm catering a wedding there. And he talks about the wedding. He says, we have this big, huge festival's wedding, and then the groom is going to step aside, and the Gilgamesh king of Uruk is going to sleep with the bride, because that's tradition. And Enkidu gets very upset about this and says, I'm going to go challenge Gilgamesh. So he and Shamhat go back to Uruk, and he sits just in front of the wedding house waiting for Gilgamesh to show up at the end of all the festivities. And when Gilgamesh does, he's like, I'm going to challenge you, and I say that I'm the greatest. And Gilgamesh gets very upset, and they have this epic wrestling match. They wrestle for about an hour or more before Gilgamesh finally manages to pin Enkidu. And Enkidu's like, wow, you are the best man, actually. And after that, they become fast friends, because they're finally able to meet somebody who is as strong as one another, and they're the second self to each other. And they do all sorts of things together, riding, hunting, learning. And finally one day, Gilgamesh is like, Enkidu, we need to make a mark in the world. We're mortal. We're going to die. Fame, however, is forever. We need to do something so famous that our names will live on forever. We need to go to the cedar forest and kill Humbaba. And Enkidu is like, no, I've seen Humbaba. He is taller than a mountain. He has the face of a lion and fangs of serpents, and he's got this magic weapon where he saps men's strength and turns everyone's hearts to quavering in fear. And Gilgamesh is like, Enkidu, that kind of attitude doesn't fit you. You are a warrior. You should have a strong heart. And Enkidu's like, you can't kill Humbaba. He was made by the gods to guard the cedar forest. We can't go against the god's wishes to kill Humbaba. Even if you do want cedar to build, and even if you're going to build them shrines and temples with the cedar, you can't kill their guardian. But Gilgamesh's mind is made up. He goes to the elders of the city, they say the same thing. He goes to his mother, the goddess Ninsun, she says the same thing, but she can tell that his mind's made up. He said, Mother, I'm going to go kill the monster Humbaba, so that I can make my mark in the world, I can become famous, and we can have cedar to build in Uruk, and Humbaba's an evil monster. But that's almost an afterthought. So Ninsun can see that her son's mind is made up. She goes and she prays to the god Shamash, who is the god of the sun, and he owns the cedar forest. She asks him to look after her son on his trip and to help him defeat the giant Humbaba. And after that, they commission giant weapons to be made, and they go off on their big journey. They travel for 3 days straight before stopping, a journey that would take normal people 6 weeks. And then they stop for rest for the night. And Gilgamesh has this horrible dream where there's this giant mountain and it just falls and crushes him. And Enkidu says, no, this dream is a good one. That means that the dream is a portent of Humbaba falling before you. And they can complete the sequence 4 more times, and Gilgamesh has the same dream again and again. And each time Enkidu says it's a good dream that Humbaba is going to fall before them. And then you get to the edge of the cedar forest, and once again Enkidu is just struck by this terrible fear. He's like, no, you don't know. I've seen Humbaba in my days as a wild man when I was roaming all over. And he is like nothing you've ever seen. You can't hope to fight him. And Gilgamesh is like, no, have courage. 2 of us together, we can do anything. So they follow the way through the forest, and they can totally see the path that Humbaba made because he's huge and there's broken trees in his wake. And when they get to his cedar house, and he steps out, and then Gilgamesh sees Humbaba for the first time, and he is so tall that Gilgamesh just feels like an ant in the shadow of an elephant. He's looking at him, and he's got the face of a lion and fangs of snakes, and all of a sudden Gilgamesh is just struck by terror, and he's like, I can't do this. I'm too terrified. I'm a coward. And Enkidu's like, this time it's his turn to encourage Gilgamesh. He said, courage, Gilgamesh. We 2 together, we can do anything. So they go up to attack Humbaba, and the fight's almost laughably short. Humbaba lets out a huge bellow, so terrifying it causes an earthquake. Trees fall to the ground shakes, mountains split open, and a big huge cloud of sulfur covers them so they can barely breathe. And they haven't even had a chance to hit him yet, and he's pretty much overpowered him. But then Shamash, who did give Gilgamesh's blessing, sends all the winds from all the world, and they bind Humbaba in a tornado so he cannot move and he cannot fight back. So Gilgamesh is able to go up, and he holds his sword to Humbaba's throat. And Humbaba's seeing he's about to die. He begs for his life. And he says, if you spare me, you can have all the cedar trees for building that you want. I will let you take any cedar that you want. People will know of your fame that you have defeated me, but you don't have to kill me. And Enkidu urges Gilgamesh, no, kill him now. Don't listen to what the monster's saying. Kill him now. And once again, Humbaba says, I'm only terrifying because the gods made me this way. I was meant to be the guardian of the forest. I'm just doing what I was made to do. Please don't kill me. And once again, Gilgamesh hesitates. And Enkidu is afraid that the winds aren't going to last forever. And he's like, no, kill him now. And then Humbaba says, if you kill me now, Gilgamesh, Enkidu will die a terrible death, and you will be inconsolable with grief. And Enkidu once again urges Gilgamesh to kill Humbaba, and Gilgamesh does eventually. Takes 3 blows to the neck before he can actually kill the monster. And at the end, everything's just quiet, and it starts raining like heaven is weeping for the death of Humbaba. But then the 2 friends go and they cut down cedar wood, and they ship it all off back to Uruk, and they have a fine cedar gate made and a shrine to Shamash, the god of the sun, to thank him for letting them use the cedar. And when they get back, and Gilgamesh is all dressed and cleaned, and he's offering up this offering to the god of the sun, and he looks every bit like the noble warrior king. And Ishtar, goddess of love and battle, who's actually the patron goddess of Uruk, she sees him, and she's like, he's a good-looking guy. So she goes up to him and says, I love you, Gilgamesh. You are a fine man. What better husband could I possibly have than you? You have slain Humbaba. You rule the mightiest city of Uruk, the greatest of all the cities of the plains. Be my husband. I will give you a beautiful chariot coated with lapis lazuli drawn by a demon. Nothing less would be fitting for a husband of mine. And at first, Gilgamesh kind of politely declines, but Ishtar insists. And then he says, no, every husband of yours has been a bad fate, because you love them, you give them beautiful things, and then you tire of them and curse them and send them on their way. And he lists 6 or 7 husbands of hers who have met terrible fates when she got tired of having them around. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then Ishtar, who's been spurned and rejected, goes up to her father, said, "Father, Gilgamesh needs to be punished. He slandered me." And just kind of knows of Ishtar's nature. It's like, did he actually say anything untrue? He needs to be punished. He killed Humbaba. And I was like, what? He killed the guardian of the cedar forest? It's like, Ishtar's like, you have to give me the bowl of heaven so I can take it down to earth and punish Gilgamesh the way he deserves. And Anu, who's upset about hearing about the death of Humbaba, is like, no, not the bowl of heaven. He shouldn't be punished for speaking the truth. He should be punished, but nothing so severe. The bowl of heaven is a terrible fate. And besides, there's all those innocent people on earth who would die. Have you thought of them? I've thought of them, said Ishtar. There's enough grain, there's enough water, they'll be able to survive the famine of the drought that the bowl of heaven brings. Let me have the bowl of heaven. And An doesn't want to let her use the bowl of heaven to punish Gilgamesh, but Ishtar threatens to smash the gates of the underworld and let all the hungry spirits back on earth to devour the living unless she gets her way. So he lets her use the bowl of Gilgamesh, or the bowl of heaven, to try and punish Gilgamesh. And she brings it down to earth. And everyone in Uruk sees this mighty bowl coming, and it's as big as a herd of elephants, but just one bowl. And when it stamps its hoof, it creates an earthquake so intense that the fissures open in the earth, and 100 men fall into the cracks. And it stamps its hooves again, and then as another earthquake, even more intense, so much so that the river Euphrates has a big, huge crack in it, and all the water runs into it, and there's no more river Euphrates. And it stamps its hooves again, and the whole walls of the city just shake, and there's cracks everywhere. And everyone's so terrified. But Gilgamesh is like, right, go defeat this monster. So he jumps up onto the back of it and is holding by the horns. And Enkidu grabs his tail to distract from Gilgamesh. And they're wrestling this huge bull outside the city for back and forth, trying to distract it. Until Gilgamesh finally gets into position, and he takes his sword and hits it right behind the base of its horns, all the way down to the base of the sword. And then the bull kind of stumbles a bit and falls into one of the cracks this earthquake's made. And the whole city doesn't know whether to be happy when the bull is gone or terrified of all the people who just died in the earthquakes that just happened. And Ishtar is completely furious. And Enkidu gets so mad at Ishtar for the destruction she just caused. He rips off the hind leg of the bull and throws it at her face, saying, "I'll show you despair." Well, that night, everyone's trying to repair the damage, and Enkidu has a terrible, terrible dream. He dreams that all the gods are having a council and saying, yep, they killed Humbaba, they killed the bowl of heaven, they did insult Ishtar, but they have been offering sacrifices to the gods, so maybe not both of them need to die. And they decide that one of the two needs to die in order to pay for all their offenses against heaven. And it comes out that because Enkidu urged Gilgamesh to kill the already defeated Humbaba, and because he had thrown the leg at Ishtar, that he was the one who has to die. And he wakes up in this cold sweat, and he knows the gods have decreed his death, and there's nothing he can do about it. And he wakes up and he tells Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh just tries to write it off as a dream. It's just like, you were just tense after the fight we had. Everybody gets upset sometimes. It's not what you think it is. But Enkidu has this dream the next night, and the next day he wakes up and he is so sick he can barely move. And for the next 12 days, Enkidu just gets sicker and sicker and sicker. And Gilgamesh, when faced with the fact that his friend is dying, tries to do everything. He offers sacrifices to the gods, tries making a little golden figurine of Enkidu to give to the gods in his friend's place so that his friend won't have to die. But after 12 days of languishing, Enkidu does die. And at first, Gilgamesh, who has seen death on the battlefield, he knows what it is. He can't wrap his head around the fact that his friend has died and is actually gone and is not coming back. And he's thinking, maybe if I just grieve hard enough, if I cry enough, the gods will hear my prayers and they'll send Enkidu back to me. And all the palace attendants want to come and they want to bury him, and Gilgamesh won't let him bury Enkidu until he actually starts decaying, and there's no hope of him coming back because he just cannot face the reality of his friend's death. And so he goes through all the funeral rites. He offers up all the offerings to the gods to make sure Enkidu is well received in the afterworld. And then he just said, I can't handle the death. Do you think if he had known Enkidu was going to die as a result of the fight with Humbaba, still would have gone to fight him? Or do you think he still would have had the attitude that fame and glory are really all that matters? Let me know in the comment section, and I will see you next chapter on Kim's Codex.